Radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
Let not your heart be troubled. You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast. All right, so I have insomnia, but I've never slept better. And what's changed? Just a pillow. It's had such a positive impact on my life. And, of course, I'm talking about My Pillow. I fall asleep faster, I stay asleep longer, and now you can, too. Just go to MyPillow.com or call 800-919-6090. Use the promo code Hannity, and Mike Lindell, the inventor of My Pillow, has the special 4-pack. Now, you get 40% off 2 My Pillow premiums and 2 Go Anywhere pillows. Now, My Pillow is made here in the USA, has a 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee, and a 10-year warranty. Go to MyPillow.com right now or call 800-919-6090, promo code Hannity, to get Mike Lindell's special 4-pack offer. You get 2 My Pillow premium pillows and 2 Go Anywhere pillows for 40% off, and that means once those pillows arrive, you start getting the kind of peaceful and restful and comfortable and deep healing and recuperative sleep that you've been craving and you certainly deserve. MyPillow.com, promo code Hannity. You will love this pillow. All right, glad you're with us. Write down our toll-free telephone number. We'd love to hear from you. It's 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. Good news today. All of the investigative reporting, Sarah Carter, John Solomon, and others now paying, and of course our reporting, huge dividends. And I will explain on the Uranium One deal. There was only so long they could go before they would have to deal with what was now becoming inevitable. And I'll get to all of that in the course of the program today. The president goes and meets with the Senate in Capitol Hill today. And I have some good news on that front, and that is that fake Flake of Arizona is not going to run. And it's just like Bob Corker. Bob Corker was going to get primaried. And I think Marsha Blackburn or somebody would have beaten him. And so, I think I've served long enough, And it's like, no, you guys aren't getting the job done. And that's the problem. And the same thing with Jeff Flake. It's the same thing. All right, so we'll get to all that today. Now, I want to first start, this is really sad. Remember I told you during this whole issue of Donald Trump trying to call a woman who lost her son in Niger, and then we have all of the punches being thrown by Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, et cetera, et cetera. This is a person that's called the president a racist, tried for impeachment, has hated everything about Donald Trump from day one, been one of his fiercest, strongest critics. But it didn't matter to the media because they so are in sync. They're basically an extension of the DNC and their talking points and their press offices. Because that's all they do every day. They're not reporting news anymore. And it's fascinating to watch how all of the issues involving Russia boomeranging back on them in a huge, massive, thunderous way, and yet they don't report it. But they're going to have to. We are going to drag them kicking and screaming. After all, Russia is a hostile nation to the United States, and he's a bad actor, Vladimir Putin. Okay, then why did you give him 20% of our uranium, you dopes? And now that we've got the evidence emerging more and more every day, it's getting fascinating. But anyway, so during the death, and they want to distract with anything else, so Donald Trump makes a call. David Johnson, a hero, an American that was killed in Niger. And so Donald Trump calls the wife of this young man and tries to offer condolences. Now, I don't even think for a second, after listening to General Kelly, I don't even think for a second that in any way, shape, matter, or form that the president was inarticulate. But let's just, for the sake of argument, say maybe he didn't get the words out the right way. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he was inarticulate. Maybe he said, look, all these guys, when somebody would say that to me, they know what they're getting into when they sign up for it. But when it happens, it still kills you. That's just a fact. Any single person that signs up for the military to serve this country and defend our liberties and our freedom, they know part of the job description is that you are putting yourself in harm's way for your country and your fellow countrymen. It's irrefutable. It's a fact. It is just what they do, and that's what makes them special. 99% of Americans will never serve in the military. Never. We have an all-volunteer army, all-volunteer military force. And, this is the best of the best. Look at what happened after 9/11. How many people? They knew they were signing up for danger. They knew war was on the horizon. They knew that they were going to fight for their country. They knew that they might die. That is the very definition of courage. That is the very definition of valor. That is the very definition of a great selfless human being. And that's why we love these guys, admire these guys as much as we do. And for Donald Trump to say to this widow, and I don't want to put any more pressure on her. I just don't want to get into it because it's so distasteful. And then the media, they just run with Frederica Wilson's comments. I heard part of the conversation. They give no context that she's the biggest Trump hater in the country, maybe besides Maxine Waters and maybe besides, some senators that are Republican, which, they'd rather see the president fail than they advance the better nature of the country. Now, if you had any doubt that what I was telling you is true, you need only understand that, well, now the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, well, now they're sending out fundraising letters based on the death of this brave soldier. And they're using Khizr Khan, if you remember him. He's a Gold Star father. I feel sorry for him. He lost his son in conflict, in battle. It's a huge sacrifice. It's devastating for any parent to ever lose a child. I don't want to go after him personally here, but I'm saying the Democrats, just like for Frederica Wilson, she's the one that was spearheading this effort to say, oh, the president was mean. The president didn't pick up a phone to call the widow of a soldier that gave his life for his country to rub salt in a wound. It didn't happen. And when General Kelly confirmed all of that, my argument was, well, let's say he was inarticulate. You know how easy it is? You ever go to a funeral? And look, I've learned something in the many years of my life watching. I've been to enough wakes and funerals, more than I care to admit, including my own parents. And I'm just telling you, you don't know what to say. You don't know. Frankly, there are never words that are going to comfort people. Usually just your presence, just the fact that you took the time. If maybe you sent flowers, maybe you just showed up, maybe you just gave them a hug. But there really are no right words that are going to comfort people. There's no magic. Well, if I say this, I'm going to make them feel better. They're not going to feel better. Your presence is comfort. Your presence, the flowers you send, the memories you share, whatever it happens to be, it's awkward, it's hard, it's difficult because these people are suffering. You'd have to be pure evil to want to add more pressure or to a situation like that. But the evidence that they're now going to raise money, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, off of this issue, and they're using a Gold Star father as the means to raise the money here. I don't even know what to say. I just don't. It's a fundraising email that they sent out. And somebody just happened to send it to me. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, really? And you're doubting this is about politics? A protester earlier today threw Russian flags at President Trump as he entered the GOP policy lunch. We've got it on audio. Let's play it.
Should be talking about treason. Why is Congress talking about tax cuts when they should be talking about treason? This president conspired with agents of the Russian government to steal an election. We should be talking about treason in Congress.
What's your name?
Not about tax cuts. Ryan Clayton from Americans Take Action. Ryan Clayton from Americans Take Action.
Anyway, so the guy got hauled out of there by Capitol Police. Nobody got hurting anyway. I wonder if this guy knows about Hillary Clinton giving Vladimir, her buddy, 20% of America's uranium and the amount of money that was kicked back to her and her husband. We'll get to that. We have had great success in the last 24 hours in a minute. By the way, a new report that has just come out, this was on Forbes.com, the NFL is losing millions and millions of viewers on television. Jason, did you see this weekend the Jets-Dolphins game? I mean, the Dolphins have a pretty good record.
Usually that's a Jet home game because of all the New Yorkers down there, so the stadium usually
the
packed.
stadium for that game, the stadium would usually be packed, and it was like half empty. Jacksonville, half empty. Cleveland, half empty.
Well, Cleveland, I mean, one out of their last 22 games they've won.
All right,
who wants to go see Cleveland?
All right, I'm just saying. Los Angeles, half empty. San Diego, half empty. The NFL's never had these problems before. And they're losing viewership. I think people like me. By the way, I don't support boycotts. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm not saying I am I'm just have no interest in watching every week to find out if the players are going to take a knee or not and not respect the flag and the anthem. I'm bored with it. And I'm watching Saturday's my football day. If I have any time on Saturday, I try to watch college football. Okay, I was watching USC Notre Dame a little bit. Oh, I know USC fans that are mad at their team this year. They are not happy about that. What?
Oh, well, I mean, I was kind of hoping that the Jets or the Giants would draft the USC quarterback, but that probably is not going to happen now.
Well, maybe it's a bad team. Listen, no quarterback. A quarterback in and of himself cannot carry a team. They just can't, if they don't have time to throw the ball and they don't have people that can catch the ball, if it's anywhere near their direction, then
well, just watch a Giant game now with their offense, no wide receivers, and poor Eli back there. No chance.
It's no chance. I mean, that's a great example.
The Jets are a better watch than the Giants right now.
Right now, that's true.
It's very painful.
Okay, Eddie. By the way, Roger Goodell can't get a hold of this thing. And they have all sorts of limitations on freedom of speech. By the way, this just broke. Speaking of Frederica Wilson, she pushed legislation mandating U.S. involvement in Niger. Anybody hear about this? I doubt the mainstream media is going to report on this. I saw it earlier today from the conservative treehouse. Anyway, the Democratic media is, by the way, are they reputable? I think so, right? Yeah. Anyway, Democratic media is desperately searching for a way to turn the combat deaths of, this is what they're doing over at MSNBC now, into like 4 deaths of Americans in Niger into President Trump's Benghazi. It's not working. Number one, he didn't lie about it. Number two, unfortunately for the left, the person who mandated their deployment to Niger had nothing to do with the Trump administration. The congresswoman responsible for the deployment who promptly turned this death of one of those heroes into a national spectacle is none other than Frederica Wilson. And apparently, given the level of her outrage, not to mention her claim that she had no idea why U.S. troops were serving in Niger, it might surprise people to learn that it was her who personally constructed H.R. 3383/Senate Bill 1632 legislation that directed the State Department and Department of Defense to execute military missions in Niger. That's right, 2016. Wilson demanded a military campaign in the same place Wilson claims not to know about in 2017. Anyway, we found a press release from Frederica Wilson. Anyway, the long-awaited victory, U.S. House of Representatives today passed by voice vote H.R. 3833, legislation introduced by Congresswoman Frederica Wilson and Senator Susan Collins to help combat Boko Haram. And the measure directs the U.S. Secretaries of State, Defense to jointly develop a 5-year strategy to aid the Nigerian government, members of the multinational joint task force created to combat Boko Haram. Oh, excuse me. Hello. You know what I'm getting the biggest kick out of is people questioning the president's mental health. The people that are questioning it in most cases have problems with their mental health. It's called Trump derangement syndrome, which is pretty funny. All right, 800-941-SHOW. I can't believe, and I predicted this would happen a year ago. How often are we way ahead? We're way ahead of the curve on Obama, right on Trayvon and George Zimmerman, right on Michael Brown, right on the Duke lacrosse team. I was right earlier in my career on Richard Jewell, right on Freddie Gray, Baltimore. right, that Donald Trump could win? I'm telling you, we were right on Uranium One. It's exploding. It is exploding. Wait till you hear the new developments today. First, I want to remind you, look, the House is going to vote on this tax plan. We want it to pass. I think it's going to pass in the House. The Senate is where the biggest problem is. Hey, guys, you know how much I love Tommy John's underwear, undershirts, and their socks. They are the best. Yet, you know what? We're getting a lot of feedback from Hannity listeners, too. And guess what? Tommy John sent me a few testimonials from real live Sean Hannity Show listeners, so I'm going to share them with you. Dave says, I can't believe I'm saying this, but they have actually changed my life. Mark says, great materials, great fit, a great example of how doing something very basic, very well can make a surprisingly positive impact on the quality of life. And Gary says, my grumpy stepfather actually thanked me for the gift of Tommy John's. That's a first in the 40 years I've known him. Louise says, my husband is walking, bending, and lifting all day. This is the first pair of underwear that doesn't roll down and ride up. He loves them. Now, you've heard the reviews. What are you waiting for? You have nothing to lose with Tommy John. It's the best pair you'll ever wear. It's free, guarantee. Just go to TommyJohn.com/Hannity. You get 20% off your first order. TommyJohn.com/Hannity, 20% off. I am more excited about what I am going to tell you because we have spent more time and we have been so ahead of the curve, and there are major, massive, huge developments on the Uranium One front. Now, how do I say this? I have known for over a year and have not told you because I was sworn to secrecy that there was an informant that had infiltrated this whole case. I have known about the bribery and the kickbacks and the extortion and the money laundering. And I have known that the FBI knew in 2009 and 10 that this network was created, infiltration had taken place, and the infiltration was that Vladimir Putin wanted to get into the U.S. uranium market because as a superpower, that's where he gets his power from. And that he set out through agents on the ground in America and using every scheme, criminal act possible, successfully was able to basically bribe the Clintons and others and get control of 20% of America's uranium. I've known about it. That's why I didn't make this prediction out of thin air. Watch, Uranium One is going to be a massive story in the next year or two. I just knew it was going to take time. Well, I'll give you a quick headline. Not only is the Senate investigating this, not only is the House investigating this, now we have senior Department of Justice officials are now deliberating how to get rid of the non-disclosure agreement of the informant that has all the tapes, all the emails, all the documents, all the evidence that I promise are going to send people to jail. We like being ahead of the curve. We're ahead of the curve on Richard Jewell, ahead of the curve on Michael Brown, ahead of the curve on Duke LaCrosse, ahead of the curve on Trump and Obama and Freddie Gray. We're not the mainstream media.
What do you think of when you hear the word Lutheran? Do you think liberal, women in clerical collars, gay marriage, social justice warriors? Find out how the 16th century Lutheran Reformation was really a conservative movement intent on reform, not revolution. With the podcast Issues Etc., issuesetc.net, Real Reformation Radio, issuesetc.net, issuesetc.net.
Very focused on delivering results. A significant part of the conversation concerned tax reform. We have got to get that done. I believe we will get it done. But we've got a lot of work to do to reach agreement and bring the Senate together to reach consensus. And I believe we'll get it done, but it's going to take time.
What was his message on health care? Did he say anything about
that we have to keep working at it, that we can't accept failure. I very much agree with the president.
All right, that was Senator Ted Cruz on the meeting that it was substantive, that the president wants to fulfill his promises, get the job done. Yeah, Ted Cruz has been a rock star. Ted Cruz, God bless him, has been, out there trying to hold the Senate accountable for the promises they keep. Now, I'm going to tell you the difference between Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, and let's say the likes of Fake Flake and little Bob Corker, whoever he is, the guy that gave us the Iranian deal. And guys like McConnell and guys like Ben Sass and guys like John McCain and Lindsey. Well, Lindsey's trying in some ways, but it's pathetic at times. He's been part of this group that hates Trump. Everything the president has said he's going to do, he's going to do. In 2013, I'll never forget this. We learned so much in 2013. You know, Ted Cruz goes up and says, we have the power of the purse. We can stop Obamacare right now. And he filibusters for 20 however many hours with very few. Mike Lee was there. Rubio was there. McConnell did it only because he was up for re-election in 2014. But Senator Cruz was reminding them that we have checks and balances, that we have co-equal branches of government, and that Republicans have the power of the purse. You know, I am so fed up with incompetence. And then, of course, we have Mitch McConnell. I think people's expectations are too high. And, you know, this president is new to this line of work.
I'm going to ask for a show of hands, but I know everybody's saying we've been there, haven't done anything, which I found extremely irritating. And I'm going to tell you why. Congress goes on for 2 years. And part of the reason I think that the storyline is that we haven't done much is because, in part, the president and others have set these early timelines about things need to be done by a certain point. Now, our new president had, of course, not been in this line of work before, and I think had excessive expectations about how quickly things happen in the democratic process. And so part of the reason I think people feel like we're underperforming is because too many kind of artificial deadlines unrelated to the reality of the complexity of legislating may not have been fully understood. And of course, our political adversaries would love to say that anytime. So what I'm asking of you is to judge this Congress when it finishes. How much have we done to make America competitive again and to grow again? And that's part of America, making America great again, which is what the president talks about so much.
2018, and all they do is vacation. All they do, they go to the Senate barbershop, the Senate dining room, the Senate workout room, the Senate this and that. And then they're out. You know, they don't even work half the year. And they can't fulfill a simple 7-year promise. Now, crybaby, snowflake, Jeff Flake of Arizona, he wants to blame. I don't know if there's room there may not be a place in the Republican Party for a guy, a Republican like me. You mean incompetent, inept? Jeff Flake, you're the swamp. And the same thing goes for Ben Sass, you're the swamp. And the same thing goes for McConnell. And the same thing goes for McCain. These guys don't understand. They don't understand Donald Trump. He tweets out mean things. Donald Trump is fighting. Donald Trump is fighting to fulfill his promises. Ted Cruz, you excoriated him in 2013. Ted Cruz fought to keep his promises. I love these guys that fight. They're trying. They're trying to keep their word. They're trying to stand for principles and the things they believe in. I have more respect, honestly, for Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer than these snowflake Republicans. This is Jeff Flake crying on the Senate floor. I'm leaving the Senate. Heaven help us as he talks about Trump. Wait, before you play, I want to say one thing. Good riddance. Goodbye. I don't care you're leaving. And frankly, take all of your snowflake, swamp friends with you, sewer friends with you. Take all the do-nothing Republicans and leave. Because all you've done is beg for power. You've gotten power and done nothing constructive with the power. And, snowflake flake, you know what? Fake flake. You ought to you are a snowflake. Why don't you just resign today? And let's get somebody that can do the job. Let's get somebody that will fight. Let's get somebody whose word is their bond and they mean what they say. Do you think your little speech on the Senate hurts anybody's feelings? I'm ecstatic. I'm glad you're gone. And let me tell you something. You know, fake Flake is lying to everybody. The reason he's leaving is because he was getting his ass kicked by Dr. Kelly Ward, who I supported the last time she ran and who the president was going to support. Latest polls, I think he was down 25 points in the primary. All right. And some of you saying, well, that's not good. You know, Chuck Schumer has a grin on his face. He thinks he can win Arizona. Maybe he can. But it doesn't make a difference. I'd rather take a shot with Kelly Ward, who's a fighter. We've known her now for many years. We've had her on the program. We like her. 5 years we've known her. And I think she's infinitely better than fake Flake, Snowflake Flake. Anyway, here's Flake, the crybaby. By the way, I'm loving this. This is not a negative to me. And I'm going to tell you, it's the same thing with Bob Corker. Bob Corker was going to lose in Tennessee. And he knew it, so he bailed out ahead of time. And for the rest of you weak Republicans that are, you know what's fascinating? They won't fight for the American people. They won't even fight for themselves. Oh, I'm going to get primaried. Oh, it's going to be hard. Oh, I don't know. Oh, I like my cushy job. I'm too bad. You're supposed to serve the American people. You're not getting the job done. Here's Snowflake.
When the next generation asks us, why didn't you do something? Why didn't you speak up? What are we going to say? Mr. President, I rise today to say enough. We must dedicate ourselves to making sure that the anomalous never becomes the normal. With respect and humility, I must say that we have fooled ourselves for long enough that a pivot to governing is right around the corner. A return to civility and stability right behind it. We know better than that. By now, we all know better than that.
The flagrant disregard for truth and decency. The reckless provocations, most often for the pettiest and most personal reasons. Reasons having nothing whatsoever to do with the fortunes of the people that we have been elected to serve. None of these appalling features of our current politics should ever be regarded as normal. We must never allow ourselves to lapse into thinking that that is just the way things are now. If we simply become inured to this condition, thinking that it is just politics as usual, then heaven help us. Without fear of the consequences and without consideration of the rules of what is politically safe or palatable, we must stop pretending that the degradation of our politics and the conduct of some in our executive branch are normal.
They're not normal. It's reckless. He's trying to turn himself into a martyr. You're not a martyr. You're a useless, do-nothing senator from Arizona who couldn't get the job done and had no sense of urgency, no fight. So I'm leaving because Donald Trump, he was mean on Twitter. That's how they're acting. I say good riddance. You're useless. Let's hopefully replace you with somebody like Dr. Kelly Ward who will fight for the people of Arizona. You know, how many times, what is it about the Trump agenda you don't like, Senator Snowflake? What is it? What do you not agree with him on ending the bureaucracy and getting rid of Obama-era regulations? Do you not agree with him on cutting taxes the way Reagan did? Do you not agree with him on getting work for the common, for the forgotten men and women of this country and getting them out of poverty and giving them a hand up, not a handout? Do you not agree with him on confronting evil in our time, ISIS? Do you not agree with him? Maybe you don't like that he said a bad thing about Bob Corker, because Bob Corker gave us that horrible, horrific Iranian deal. You know, how soon before this guy becomes a CNN contributor or an MSNBC contributor? How soon before he writes his book that nobody's going to buy? How soon? You know, he's turning himself into something he's not. He's not a martyr. And Bob Corker, they were going to lose. And they should lose. Now, this should be a shot across the bow in this sense politically. That any other senator wants to follow these guys out the door and they want to say it's Trump. That's why I'm leaving, because of Donald Trump. I don't care. Leave. Goodbye. Good riddance. You're useless. You haven't done anything. You're a do-nothing Senate. And if you don't get tax reform, you're really a do-nothing Senate. And you're afraid Steve Bannon said he's going to primary you. You were going to, Senator Snowflake was going to get his ass kicked. Senator Corker was going to get his ass kicked. And you know what? What happened in Alabama was a big shot across the bow. I'm tired of these people. They're not martyrs. They're people that can't keep their word. All right, now let me go to the other issues I have. Now, we need to say this, and I'll get into very great detail with Sarah Carter, Victoria Tunsing. This is an amazing developments we have today. Senior Department of Justice officials are now deliberating over providing the FBI informant that is under a non-disclosure agreement the opportunity to speak and present the evidence that he has, emails, documents, tapes, phone conversations. He's got it all as it relates to Uranium One. As a matter of fact, the very thing that the FBI knew, that crimes, bribery, kickbacks, extortion, money laundering was all happening in 2009. You know, the media won't talk about this time. This is massive. Congressional committees, the Senate Judiciary have requested the Department of Justice lift the gag order on this FBI informant. He was an FBI informant. He knew crimes were committed. He knew crimes were being committed. The FBI knew. Robert Mueller was the head of the FBI. Eric Holder signed, one of 9 people like Hillary, to sign the waiver to give 20% of uranium, the Uranium One deal in 2010. Bill Clinton's trying to meet with Russian nuclear officials. Bill Clinton meeting with Vladimir Putin. Bill Clinton paid by a bank that has a financial interest in Uranium One that's associated with the Putin regime. All we've heard is how hostile Putin and Russia is to the United States. Well, now we're going to get to the bottom of this, and now we're going to get to the truth of all of this. House investigators, they're now saying they will subpoena the confidential informant as well. The Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley demanded last week that the Department of Justice, the FBI, lift the non-disclosure agreement from the informant as it relates to the Clinton nuclear bribery scandal. If the Justice Department refuses to release him from the non-disclosure. So we got Representative Ron DeSantis in the House, Government Reform Oversight. He's going to be seeking the testimony of this confidential informant. The lawyer for the confidential informant, Victoria Tunsing, joins us next, as well as Sarah Carter. None of this would have happened without Sarah Carter. None of this would have happened without John Solomon. None of this would have happened without their investigative work. And I'll be honest, if I didn't hit this as hard as I've been hitting it, because I knew this information existed. You know, Victoria Tunsing, the informant knows the details of Russia's plan to bribe the Clintons. You're going to hear all of this next. Now 2 House committees have reopened the investigation into Hillary's email scandal. I'm finally not speaking to myself. Finally, hard work is beginning to pay off. And the media now, again, has egg on their face. How could you ever trust these people at Conspiracy NBC? They're not talking about the real Russia conspiracy. Or fake news CNN, or ABC, or NBC, or CBS, or the New York Times, or the Washington Post. By the way, is it any wonder these people want to kill me? They want me dead. They want me off the air yesterday. The efforts to take me off the air have never been this intense. Ever. It's every day. And we're just going to keep plowing through. And if they get me, then I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll talk to myself, I guess. This is becoming everything I told you it would be. When we get back, we will talk to the lawyer for the FBI informant that needs the gag order NDA lifted, Victoria Tunsing, and Sarah Carter, largely responsible through her investigative work, along with John Solomon, to make the Uranium One story what it deserved to be. Where's the rest of the media? Silent, as usual.
Would you agree, though, that there's an appearance of a conflict, though? One example being Uranium One, the Canadian company, sold to Russia, something that required your approval as well. And then later, some of the players involved in that deal wound up paying former President Bill Clinton, your husband, obviously, a $500,000 speaking fee.
Well, I don't know if we have enough time in this interview to debunk all of the allegations that were made by people who are wielding the partisan axe, but there's no basis for any of that. The timing doesn't work. work. It happened in terms of the support for the foundation before I was Secretary of State. There were 9 government agencies who had to sign off on that deal. I was not personally involved because that wasn't something the Secretary of State did.
As you know, Sean Hannity on his program has been very critical of the Uranium One deal. The president saying, with regard to Russia, that's the real story in all of this. What would you say to those critics?
I would say it's the same baloney they've been peddling for years, and there's been no credible evidence by anyone. In fact, it's been debunked repeatedly and will continue to be debunked. But here's what they're doing, and really, I have to give them credit. You know, Trump and his allies, including Fox News, are really experts at distraction and diversion. So the closer the investigation about real Russian ties between Trump associates and real Russians, as we heard Jeff Sessions finally admit to in his testimony the other day, the more they want to just throw mud on the wall, and I'm their favorite target, me and, you know, President Obama. We're the ones that they always like to put into the crosshairs. So, yes, I'm not surprised, but I think the real story is how nervous they are about these continuing investigations.
We know there was a huge amount of content being produced in places like Macedonia. We know that WikiLeaks, which is basically a front now for Putin, was more than willing to publish stolen emails from the DNC, from John Podesta, and that then those emails were weaponized with ridiculous, absurd, untrue stories being churned out, on and on. So there's a lot we know already.
You followed this extremely closely.
Well, I started following this back in the summer of 2016 because there was something going on. When the DNC hack happened, you know, we had a huge political crisis when Republicans physically broke in to the Democratic Party's records back in the so-called Watergate years. This is a different kind of theft. And it's.
Do you think this is bigger than Watergate?
I think it's probably bigger than Watergate because it is about the future.
I'll tell you what's a bigger scandal is giving 20% of uranium to that hostile regime called Russia under Vladimir Putin. And what's even more corrupt is the fact that she and her husband financially benefited from the deal. And what's even more corrupt is the FBI knew in 2009 and 2010, before she ever signed off on the deal. What did they know? They knew that they had documents and emails and tapes and evidence of all kinds proving bribery, extortion, money laundering, and all sorts of other crimes, racketeering crimes. And they were trying to infiltrate Hillary's inner circle, and they succeeded. And she ended up, and Eric Holder ended up, in spite of that evidence, Robert Mueller, the FBI director, ended up signing off on this deal, at least Holder and Hillary did. That gives 20% of America's uranium, the foundational material for nuclear weapons, to that hostile regime she's talking about. We've got massive developments today as senior now Department of Justice officials are now deliberating over providing the FBI informant to Congress, meaning that they would lift the non-disclosure agreement that he signed and allow him to present the evidence that he has kept that proves that all of this collusion, all of this corruption, and frankly, outright bribery of the Clintons took place. And joining us now with the latest developments, we have 2 House committees now looking into it, or a House committee and a Senate committee looking into it. Sarah Carter, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her and John Solomon and their investigative reporting on this front. And Victoria Tunsing is with the DeGeneva and Tunsing law firm, and she is representing the informant at the center of this entire investigation. Welcome, both of you, to the program.
It's 2 House committees, so much, Sean.
I'm sorry, that's 2 what?
It's 2 House committees.
That's right, 2. You're right. And I think government reform is also looking into it, if I'm not mistaken.
That's my shorthand for oversight.
Okay, got it. All right, let me start with this new development, Sarah, and then I want to talk to Victoria about her client. If in fact you know, and you told me last night, you know who the informant is, Sarah, and you know Correct. That there's a lot more information this informant has, right?
That is correct. And the informant, through his attorney, I was able to validate who he was. And I know he has more information that he would like to share. Now, remember, Sean, everything he's doing now is through his attorney. So everything has to be legal. He can't violate any of the non-disclosure agreements that he has. That's why right now there's a deliberation, like you had just said, within the Justice Department as to whether or not they're going to lift his non-disclosure agreement so he can talk to the people that he needs to speak with, both on the Hill and within the Justice Department. So now that the House Intelligence and Oversight committees are involved in this, and they're looking into, they're calling for an investigation into Uranium One, and they want to see what happened, what information was provided to the CFIUS committee, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, which would actually, deals with national security issues such as Uranium One, when a foreign company, wishes to purchase an asset that is considered a national security asset. So I think Victoria will be able to speak more to what her client has and what he's willing to talk about. What I know is that some of the information I have not been able to ascertain because I assume that information is classified.
Victoria, you said last night, and this blew me away, that your client, the FBI informant, knowledge of Russia's ability to use the Clintons' position of power is beyond significant. And you said, quote, he can tell what all the Russians were talking about during the time that all these bribery payments were being made.
He can indeed, because he was present with them.
So in other words, would that detail Russia's plan to bribe the Clintons to get 20% of our uranium, the foundational material for nuclear weapons?
He can tell about all the conversations and what they were saying about the Clintons. He can indeed.
But
you know what, Sean? That's a one-page letter to the Justice Department. I don't know how long one has to wring one's hands and ponder over a three-paragraph letter.
Let's talk about. Now, there has been reporting on the type of evidence that he has emails, that he has documents, that he was present and has his own reflections and memories apparently written down, that there are tapes that would prove. What do you suspect that this is going to be proven at the end of this?
Well, I can't do that, because to go there, then I start putting both of us in jeopardy for violating
the NDA. You can't blame me for, trying. That's my job, Victoria. I love you to death.
I know.
Well,
I'm tough.
I do know you're tough. But all right, let me ask the question this way. In terms of, I have been believing in my heart that this is going to be one of the biggest scandals in the history of this country in terms of national security. Do you think I'm wrong?
I think you're right. Sarah's been working on this, much longer. I just got into it a few weeks ago when it was determined that my client needed a lawyer. But Sarah and John have been working on these documents for several months, and I'm sure you would agree, right, Sarah?
Sarah, tell us what you think.
I absolutely agree. And I think, if anything, it gives the American public, as well as our Congress and this new administration, it will give them an insight into what happened that we would have never known had it not been for the courage of this former confidential informant for the FBI. And I say courage because it takes a lot of courage to come forward and deliver this information. I know he wanted to do this in the past. He was threatened with his liberty and his reputation if he was to step forward with that, and that was under Loretta Lynch. And Victoria knows this because she has those documents that prove that. So now it's his time to speak. And remember, he's not just talking about what happened in the United States, which is the enormous national security implications of Uranium One, but he's also speaking out against the Russians. And this is a very dangerous situation, I assume, and Victoria can correct me if I'm wrong, but for this confidential informant. But he feels it's his duty, and he came forward voluntarily. Nobody twisted his arm. Nobody threatened him to become an informant. In the beginning, he came forward voluntarily to the FBI and to the Justice Department to to relay to them what he knew was going on within Rosatom, which is the main Russian nuclear arm, and its subsidiaries, which were 10X and Tenem, and also with companies inside the United States like Transportation Logistics International, which was moving the uranium.
What about?
Here's an important point, and that is that he had to use his own salary to give the bribes. It was real pay to play. He soon after he was hired by the Russian company, they said, "Okay, you want to keep your job? You have to give half of your salary out in these bribes and paybacks." So that's when he went to the FBI, because he could have just left the company and gone off and made the same full amount of money elsewhere. But he went to the FBI, and they said, "No, stick it out, stay there. You know, there's corruption, but we also need to know about the Russian nuclear energy."
A couple of things stand out. I mean, the fact that Bill Clinton at the time doubled the speaking fees, the fact that $145 million made it back to the Clinton Foundation. I want to know where that money originated from, because we're talking about money laundering that is going to be proven here. I also want to know, Bill Clinton reached out to those. Bill Clinton gives a speech. The bank is associated and has a financial interest in Uranium One and is associated with Moscow and the Kremlin and Vladimir Putin, which is amazing. And not only did he have to seek his wife's permission, his State Department permission to meet with the nuclear officials, he didn't even meet with them. He met directly with Vladimir Putin, Victoria.
Yes, indeed, and that was within 4 months. The speech was 4 months before the October 2010 decision to allow the Russians to purchase Uranium One. Just as Hillary said, my gosh, the timing's off, right? It would only be suspicious if it were within a few days, right?
Right.
Like some of the other speeches.
Well, in Renaissance Capital, you made that payment. I don't know if everybody recalls this, but Senator Grassley had held a hearing in which an expert spoke out about Renaissance Capital just earlier this year and said the majority of people working inside Renaissance Capital are former KGB, FSB agents for the Russian government. So the people that paid Bill Clinton are connected directly to Russia's clandestine agency. And so if we're looking at this on its face, and we see that Renaissance Capital was also, they were touting the Uranium One deal. They were pushing for it. And that wasn't coming from me. This is coming from a New York Times story in 2014, I believe, in 15, when they were talking about this. So there's a lot of questions here, Sean, and a lot of answers that I think the American public and our lawmakers need. As
soon as Victoria's client is able to talk, we're going to learn a lot. Victoria, by the way, we're trying to get you for TV tonight. I was just told by my TV producer. So if you're available, Sarah, you're going to be on tonight, and John
Correct.
Solomon and also Sebastian Gorka and Greg Jarrett and Ivanka. And I got to applaud both of you. We would never get to the truth were it not for you two. And I want to thank you both for what you've done here, because you've done this country a great service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Victoria. And we'll see you both, hopefully, tonight on Hannity. 800-941-SEAN is our number. I am so blown away by these new developments. I think, I just want to say this. I remember back when Obama was running, and I remember we started to vet Obama. And I remember the blowback, the pushback we got. And I remember friends of mine saying, I'm ruining my career. Before this last election, same thing. I am sure if Donald Trump lost, there were people that had written my obituary 5,000 times over. And my career is done. That's never been what's motivated me. I don't think of the consequences of giving my truthful and honest opinion on things. And I've known that this is the truth, that our country has been sold out. Our national security has been sold out for a long time. And I've been putting together and getting bits and pieces of information. It has to be at least a year and a half. I can go back in the archives of Hannity, the television program, and play for you when I said this is going to be a big deal. I've known about this informant and the evidence that has existed for well over a year. And but I was sworn to secrecy. And if I give my word, unlike Ben Sass and Jeff Flake, the Snowflake, and Bob Corker, you know, what is it? What's the nickname you want for him? Go ahead, tell me.
I don't have one for Bob Corker yet, but I have one for Sass the Ass.
Sass the Ass. Okay, I can live with that. These people don't fight for what they believe in. That's why I have no... I'm glad Jeff Snowflake is leaving. He's not a fighter. Maybe there's no place for me in the Republican Party. What part of Trump's agenda don't you like? And if you disagree, go fight with him. Where's your sense of purpose? Your sense of urgency? Your sense of a desire to serve? As a matter of fact, speaking of Sass the Ass and Snowflake Flake and Fake Flake, I see
Corker the Porker.
Corker the Porker. So I see that Fake Jake has on Senator Do Nothing Snowflake. It's hilarious. All right. Wait till you see tonight's Hannity. All right, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is next.
I think if you look at some of the progress that's taken place in the first 9 months, despite the fact that the Congress has done very little up until this point, the president has gotten rid of nearly 1,000 regulations that have paved the way for massive job creation and job growth in this country. We're looking at a booming economy. I think those are things that people actually care about. We're looking at the defeat of ISIS, something that this president has led on and worked with our coalition forces to help do. He's created better relationships with countries around the globe. He's bolstered the relationship with NATO and had other countries encouraged in the growth of the amount of money that other countries are participating in that. The historic moment that we saw with the president on his first foreign trip when he was in Saudi Arabia and he spoke in front of nearly 60 Muslim-majority countries. These are historic moments that he's done without Congress. Imagine how incredible and how many good things we would be doing if people like Senator Bob Corker got on board and started doing their job instead of doing so much grandstanding on TV.
Oh, I loved what Sarah Huckabee Sanders said from the podium today, and we just so happen to have her, and she's the White House press secretary. You know, you have the most miserable job in the entire universe. I don't know how you deal with those snakes every day. And by the way, these are my words. They're not Sarah Sanders' words. They're Sean Hannity's words. I don't think I could control my temper. I honestly don't think I could do it.
Some days it's hard, but it helps that after doing that, I get to come on your radio show and talk to friendly people like you, Sean.
Well, look, I do appreciate the great work you do, and I think you do it masterfully, and I think it's a very difficult job. One of the things I just despise about the media is, number one, they're agenda-driven. In my opinion, they are an extension of the Democratic Party's, ops operation, and they're just basically all sheep, and they all ask the same questions every day. And I was watching you just a few minutes ago, and I thought you handled the whole issue of Senator Snowflake retiring out there in Arizona, and I love what you said. They haven't gotten their job done. Go ahead.
And I think the people of their home states are frustrated by their inability to be effective and to push legislation through, despite the fact that the Senate has not been as successful. This president still managed to get a lot of things done, and I think that he's going to continue working with members of the Senate, certainly Republican members of the Senate, to really make historic changes like tax cuts for the middle class, and I think we're going to see that by the end of this year.
I think we're going to see it, and it's not because they, I don't understand what part of the president's agenda that they're against. All right, maybe they don't like the president's style, but, I mean, to be perfectly blunt, we don't even know who half these senators are because they're too afraid to take a stand on anything. And I don't like the fact that people run for office and they're supposed to be public servants and they're not serving the American people and fighting for the American people. And I think, people like Senator Sass and Senator Flake and Senator Corker and some of these other guys, if they'd spend more time fighting for the people they represent, we'd be a lot better off, and President Trump wouldn't be so frustrated with them. I'm frustrated with them.
Absolutely, and I think America's frustrated with them. I think that's one of the reasons you see a lot of these individual members that come out and attack this president, their numbers drop, because they do want to see somebody get things done. That's what this president has been focused on, is actual results, not just rhetoric. And I think that you're seeing a lot of that frustration come through, not just from the president, but certainly from the American people.
The fact is this. Senator Corker was probably going to be primaried and lose. And Jeff Flake had no shot against Dr. Kelly Ward, who I've known and has been a guest on this program for 5 years now. And so I'm watching him today, and he's trying to be a martyr, and he's trying to act like, oh, woe is me. And I'm sitting there thinking the only reason you're really getting out is because you're not going to win. So you might as well go out and blame somebody else other than yourself and the fact that you're not out there fighting to keep your promises. I mean, that's my take on it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the problems with Washington is you have people that are so much more concerned with reelection and a lot less concerned about focusing on real policy changes. This is a president who is not concerned about doing things politically correct, but he's concerned about actually accomplishing real things that impact change. And I think that that's really shaken some of these members, and one of the reasons you're seeing some of them get a massive dip in their numbers and drop out and not run for reelection.
Let me play something that you said the other day, and it's funny because it was echoed by former President Jimmy Carter, of all people, and that there's never been a president that has experienced the level of hostility from the press day to day like this president. You said this from the podium.
So recently in The Atlantic magazine, Glenn Thrush said he thought the administration's apparent tension with the press was overstated. Would you agree?
No. I know Glenn well, but, I think that there's always going to be tension between whatever administration is in place at that time with the White House press corps. But I do think that there is a heightened tension, certainly between this administration and the press. I think you can see that in the coverage. I mean, I've been around press and worked in politics my entire life, and I've never experienced the level of kind of hostility that I think we see day to day.
Why do you think that is? I have my I think the reason is, I'll give you my answer and then I want yours. I think the reason is that this president doesn't take any crap. This president fights. This president digs his heels in. And I love the fact that he's fighting for the country and taking a stand. And I think they resent it and they're not used to it.
Absolutely. I think one of the other reasons is they never expected him to win. And I think that it absolutely embarrassed them when they were crying on national TV on election night when this president showed them up and proved them wrong and has continued to do that every single day since taking office.
Yeah. No, I think you're right as well. Let me ask you this. What is the relationship like with Jim Acosta? I mean, I don't think there's anyone more hostile. Jim Acosta thinks he's a talk show host instead of a, quote, objective journalist, and they're sitting there and being obnoxious to you every day. I mean, how do you handle that, and what is it like behind the scenes with these people?
I try to take it one day at a time. Look, I hate to overgeneralize the entire White House press corps.
No, you can.
There are some good reporters and good journalists that still exist in that group, and I think it's sad when you have a few people that so regularly are more focused with getting good TV clips than they are with actually getting good information, substantive information. And they focus so much more on the palace intrigue and the process stories and so little on substance and so little on policy. I do think that that's a big distraction, but there are a handful of good folks out there, and so I hate to see some of the louder folks take all of the attention away from some of the better reporters.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is missing from the Republican Party is an identity, and I know that certainly the president has a real agenda. How did it go in the meeting today when he went up to Capitol Hill?
I thought the meeting was really productive. I think that it shows that the support for this president with the Republican senators is pretty wide and pretty deep. You've got a few people. Again, I don't think just because they're the loudest folks in the room, it makes them speak for the entire group or certainly for the majority. As we often say in the South, just because they eat their soup louder than everybody else doesn't mean it tastes any better. And so I think that you can apply that certainly to the Republican members of the Senate. There's a great deal of, I think, support and respect from those members, and they really want to see something big happen.
Before I ask you more professional questions, on a personal level, I'm just curious because I've always felt your dad is one of the best debaters all the times he's run for president on that stage, and he's got a great wit. He's very sharp. He's smart, funny, very personable. What part of growing up with your dad and him being governor do you think helped prepare you for this?
I would not disagree with your assessment of my dad at all. Obviously, I think he is one of the best and the brightest that has ever been, but I'm also a very biased daughter, and I'm perfectly okay with that. But I think, having a front row seat to the political process certainly, I think, helped prepare me, but also having a dad that really allowed me to be part of it, not just to watch it, but to actually engage in it. He included me from a really early age in a lot of his campaigns, and I got to sit in the meetings while he was having different discussions throughout his time as governor. I think it really helped give me a different perspective and certainly a great insight into the process.
Let me ask you about the Uranium One issue. I have been all over this. I have known about this FBI informant that has the emails and the documents and the tapes and all the evidence that we now know the FBI knew about in 2009. This is an FBI informant. And now what we're beginning to discover is, it looks like a pay-to-play, bribery, compromising of American national security with the hostile regime of Vladimir Putin in Russia. And we've spent the better part of a year with no evidence talking about Trump, Russia collusion. This, to me, is one of the biggest scandals in national security, because we, at the end of this, with money transferring hands all over the place, gave up 20% of America's uranium to this bad actor that everybody in the liberal media has been talking about. And I would argue, but for me, Sarah Carter, John Solomon, and now Victoria Tunsing, I don't think anybody else has picked up on it. And I think where we're headed with this, now that we have three congressional investigations, one in the Senate, two in the House, and it looks like that the informant is going to have his NDA lifted, that all of this evidence is going to become public, and none of it is going to be good for the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, or Eric Holder.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on. I mean, just last week there was a report from The Hill that alleges officials in the previous administration actually had knowledge of Russians who were engaged in bribery, a massive kickback scheme that allowed their government to get a huge foothold in the U.S. uranium supply. That is concerning in itself, but it went on further and said these officials had information indicating that Russians routed millions of dollars to the U.S. designed to specifically benefit Bill and Hillary Clinton's foundation while she was Secretary of State. I mean, it just one fact after another comes out that shows that this was just a horrible situation, all this taking place. And one of the things that I find even more impactful is that this report doesn't just cite anonymous sources. It actually has a member of Congress on the record validating and giving credibility to this story. You've had a ton of media outlets, just about every single one, minus a few of the good ones that like to run stories alleging the Russia collusion. They're far thinner, including allegations made against the Attorney General by senators without having any evidence, and major networks and mainstream media have completely ignored this story.
Well, they're not going to be able to.
Mind-boggling to me.
They're not going to be able to ignore it much longer. And, the words Sarah Carter, John Solomon, Sean Hannity were right are going to have to come flowing out of their mouths as usual. But I'm sure I'll be dying until my last breath before I hear those words. What do you make of the fact the FBI director at the time that knew about this information was Robert Mueller? And Robert Mueller is now the special counsel, and he's investigating, quote, Russia collusion. Does that compromise his ability to do it? Or Rod Rosenstein? He was, the deputy attorney general at the time, as he is now.
Look, again, I think that the details of this story and this report are certainly extremely troubling and something that we should be looking into. I don't want to get any further ahead of the investigation. I'll leave some of those comments for you to do. But I definitely think that this story shows just the absolute hypocrisy that exists in the media, particularly given their obsession and the Russia fever that they've had over the last year. They finally have a real Russia story, and I hope that some of the other outlets will start covering it.
That's okay. I'll do their job for them as usual. Anyway, you should be very proud of the job you do. I think it's extraordinarily difficult. And I think you've got the patience of Job. And Sarah Sanders, why you dropped Huckabee? Is that true? I don't know. I want to make sure I get it right.
Well, my husband does appreciate that I've claimed him. I've always tried to go by Sarah Sanders, but, I'm certainly very proud of my family and happy if they'll let me continue to be associated with them as well.
Oh, I think you're in the good graces of your father and mother. I know them well. So,
yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. And congratulations on the job you're doing. And it's a thankless job. We appreciate you being with us, and we wish you all the best. All right. 800-941-SEAN. We're going to get to calls in the next hour. Brian Kilmeade, my buddy from Fox, is going to join us. All right. As we roll along, news roundup, information overload hour coming up. We'll talk a little football, have a little fun. Our friend Brian Kilmeade is going to check in with us. Also talk to him about all these latest developments with Uranium One. Don't miss tonight's Hannity. I have a message for people like Bob Corker and Snowflake Fake Flake of Arizona, who's trying to make himself a martyr. And the developments on Uranium One are massive. We've got it all covered tonight on Hannity, 9 Eastern. Quick break.
Talk to other people. With all that's been said and done today, you probably get whatever I would say about it might be, slanted off in a direction.
Let me ask you a more policy-specific question then. Yeah. Do you think the president's appearance here today will be helpful in passing tax reform?
The tax reform barely came up, so yeah.
What was the topic?
What
did the president discuss then?
Well, really talking to other senators.
All right, that was Bob Corker after, I guess, the meeting with the president earlier today. And, of course, we can thank Bob Corker for a lot of great things in Washington, not the least of which is that idiotic Iranian deal, which he signed off on. I mean, I got to be honest, the stupidity of some people coming out of Washington is beyond any comprehension I ever could imagine or have in any way, shape, manner, or form. Joining us now, by the way, is our good friend Brian Kilmeade is with us. And, of course, you can watch him every morning on Fox and Friends, the #1 morning show in cable news. He's the author of a brand new book, Andrew Jackson and the Miracle of New Orleans. Before we get to that, I want to ask you this. I'm looking at Bob Corker and I'm saying to myself, all right, you're going to retire because he probably was going to get primaried and he was at risk of losing. I don't believe he's leaving because I've always felt that, you shouldn't make a career out of Washington. But he's a part of this cabal of senators like Ben Sasse and Lindsey Graham and John McCain and Jeff Flake and a bunch of them, that when they go behind closed doors, and I know because people in the room tell me what they say, they so hate this president that it has literally rendered them impotent in terms of doing anything that they're supposed to do in terms of serving the American people. Now, and I'm looking at the Twitter fight that these two are engaged in, and I'm saying, okay, I don't really care about Twitter fights. I've had my own share of them. But I'm like, first do your job. And you couldn't repeal and replace health care. And he's just such a sanctimonious brat in all of this that he doesn't really care that Republicans around the country voted for Donald Trump. He doesn't care that he may not like his style. He may not like the fact that he tweets. He may not like that he pushes Congress to do their job. But maybe if he did his job, we wouldn't be complaining about him.
I agree with everything you said except Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, he got personally attacked, and he attacked back, whatever. And I think that he does like the president. I think he likes him more as a guy than he does even as a president. So I don't know if you believe me on that, but I happen to know he loves hanging out with him. He talked about how his swing was screwed up, and the president sent a pro out to deal with him in the middle of an 18-round, an 18-hole last weekend. So Senator Graham, I say, is a little different, and Bob Corker is totally out of control. What he did
So is Ben Sass. I mean, Ben Sass is complaining that I'm at Pastor Robert Jeffers' church, and he has no idea why I'm even there. I wasn't there to talk that much politics. I might have taken a shot, but that was done in all good humor. But, I mean, I'm honestly there. Pastor Jeffers has asked me, well, how did you come to your faith? Tell us about your faith-based movie that you're the executive producer of. And then, I'm thinking, one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life is endorse this guy, Ben Sass. And I went all in for him. I really trusted him and believed him. And I feel like an idiot for supporting that guy. And he, by the way, he thinks he's going to be president. That's never going to happen.
True. I agree with that. I would say this, and you probably don't know because you were just speaking, but Senator Schumer just left the microphone, at which time he quoted Senator Corker directly, using the term where he said not telling the truth. The president's lying about this tax reform. He's lying about that. So the Republican senator, allegedly conservative from Tennessee, with President Trump as won easily, is now using Republicans' words are being used against President Trump. So it could help derail tax reform. Now, if you don't like President Trump, that's your problem or your asset. But are you a Republican that wants tax reform? If the answer is yes, you're hurting that mission. What is your mission? To help Tennessee and the country the best you can. To go off on the president personally for no apparent reason without any provocation blows me away.
I just think that, I've heard from people that are inside those Senate closed-door meetings that the list of people, including Graham, are those that have been very critical of the president. But on the other hand, at least the president, everything the president has promised that he can do individually on his own, he's getting done. It's the things that he's promising people in terms of like tax reform and repealing and replacing, but for Gorsuch, and I'll give Mitch McConnell and the Senate all the credit they deserve. Except for that, I mean, they can't even give the president half of his government appointments. They can't even. There's 280 bills in the House sitting in the Senate that are not going to be taken up this year, including sanctuary cities and Kate Steinle bill, Kate's law. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right. But you know why I think tax reform is going to get done? It's all about them. They know if they don't do it, they're almost all out of a job in the House and in the Senate eventually, if not this round. So if it's about them, not the president, I think they'll act. And then of course, there'll be pressure brought on because the president's popularity will rise. So I actually see the glass half full here.
All right, so let's talk. You're like the biggest sports fan. How many Super Bowls have you been to in your life?
24.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, from when I was doing all sports before I joined Fox, I was going every year. And then Fox sends me every year except for one, I think. And then last year was the biggest. We sent the whole show. I think you go all the time. So I'm biased towards the commissioner. I know him. I know Jane Skinner. You know Jane Skinner. But I know this. He does not have the power to tell the players to stand.
Bull.
He does it because of the union.
Bull. It doesn't matter. The NFL has rules. Let me give you some examples. If you can't put on the 15th anniversary of 9/11, put the date on your cleats and never forget. If you can stop a player from doing that, if you can stop a player from wearing pink because his mother has breast cancer, which they've done, if you can't honor slain police officers in Dallas after they were slaughtered last year, and you stop the players, those are all. If you can't twerk and you can't taunt and you can't curse out an official and you can't taunt other players and you can't even do a fake bow and arrow shot after a touchdown, I'm sorry, there are a lot of free speech restrictions that they enforce now. And if teams wanted, I think Jerry Jones is. Look, the NFL's losing millions of viewers. Why can't?
Sean, it's union. And
okay.
You know what it's like to work in a network place. I mean, sometimes if you go to a network, a broadcasting network, and you go to hit eject on a tape player, that would have been a violation. So if the commissioner got up and said, I'd love to do, he would tell the truth. He says, I would love to mandate it, but the union won't let me. Then the players look at the commissioner as the enemy. And not that he needs the money, but that would cause an implosion. So I think he's taking one for the team. It is a union. So the NBA built it in, stand for the national anthem. They built in a uniform code, don't touch the uniform or else you're going to get fined. They did not build in stand for the national anthem in the NFL. They never thought they had to deal with it.
Okay, the bottom line is if I'm an owner, I'm telling my players stand or there's the door. You don't have Well, that's what I would do because
I agree. No, I agree. I mean,
and Roger Goodell needs to get. If I was Roger Goodell, I would have done this last year with Kaepernick. I mean, Colin Kaepernick wearing socks depicting cops as pigs. Colin Kaepernick praising a dictator, a thug, and a murderer, Fidel Castro. Colin Kaepernick donating to a fund that helps out the widow of a cop killer. Seriously? I'm sorry. If I'm Roger Goodell, look at Roger Goodell. Didn't he step up when we had all these instances of even alleged domestic abuse, not even confirmed domestic abuse?
And when he was slow in the Ray Rice situation, and the video made him look bad, there was huge backlash. When he acts too quick, they go to Ezekiel Elliott. They brought him to court, and they're still in court, and this guy is still playing. So he does not have the power you think he does. I think he could have done stuff behind closed doors to get his way, and again, in an effort not to alienate every player, he didn't come out. He's almost taking one for the team, pun intended. And I don't know if you've met him before. He's like the story that Sean Hannity would like.
Listen, I met Roger Goodell. He's a nice guy, but he's literally now lost control of the league he's supposed to be in charge of.
And the numbers will get the teams back in line because they are bought into the revenue. The players get paid a percentage of the revenue. And we see the empty seats. And we see the ratings dip.
Did you see the Jets in the Cleveland game this weekend? Oh, my gosh, there were more empty seats than there were people.
And Miami's in contention. Los Angeles is in contention. The San Diego Chargers can't sell out a soccer stadium in Los Angeles. The Rams, brand new, were in first place. They can't fill up the Coliseum halfway. So this is something they've never dealt with before. Jacksonville has got the best team they've had in 15 years, and they can't fill up their stadium.
Listen, I'm telling you, if I was Roger Goodell, I would bring every player. I'd have the biggest meeting, and I'd say, guys, this is the way it's going to be. Either that or I'm going to resign because you guys are going to kill the goose. Well, he makes too much money to resign. I think he makes like $40 million a year, right?
Right, but he doesn't have a contract yet renewed. But how many times you have to make $40 million before you can really feel good about retiring?
I don't know. You keep getting the ratings you're getting on Fox and Friends. I think you're going to have $40 million a year in no time.
And you know what? It is all because of me. You know that, Sean. It's all because of me.
I'm going to tell your co-host that you said that. They're going to hear about it.
Taping this. You're not taping this.
By the way, you don't even know it yet. I'm going to be on your show on Thursday. In studio.
Fantastic with your movie because I did Huckabee the other night and I saw Kevin and Sam Sorbo, and I've never seen them so pumped up.
You know, we did this whole thing independent, and what's really exciting about it is because we didn't want to be beholden or in partnership with any studio because we don't want them telling us what to do. And studios are just notorious for trying to make everything the same. And this movie's not the same, and that's what makes it, I think, special. And so we thought we'd start with just a few hundred theaters. It looks like we might be up to 5 or 6 by the time we get to Friday, which is amazing for an independent film without a studio backing.
No, I know, it's fantastic. And, I saw about half of it. I got sent the link, and I waited.
What do you mean you got sent the link? I sent you the link.
No, you didn't. Sam Sorbo did because she really likes me.
Maybe she likes you better than I do. So why are you dissing your co-host, Steve Ducey and Ainsley Earhart? What's up with that?
I'm just having fun. Our ratings are, extremely high.
So you think you're better than but you can say you think you're better than your co-host. You believe that?
Well, I just tell them the people have spoken.
The people have spoken. What people have spoken? What are you talking about?
I'm not. No, it's definitely it's an art. It's not Hannity. It's Fox and Friends, which means collaboration, which means my name's not even in the title. Okay,
but it's the same.
It just goes to show you how expendable I am.
Exactly. But the point is, you got 3 hours in the morning to do a show. I only get 1 hour at night.
And don't forget my 3 hours on radio, the Brian Kilmeade show.
But listen, I said this to you the last time I saw you. Brian Kilmeade, if you watch him closely, he's going to do 3 hours of Fox and Friends, then he's going to do 3 hours of radio, then he's going to show up on Outnumbered, then he's going to co-host the 5, and then he's going to fill in at the 10 o'clock show because Laura Ingraham has, apparently needs to take her sweet time to get her show started, and she doesn't start till next Monday.
Well, I'm supposed to be on your TV show tonight, host the 10 o'clock.
No, actually, you're on tonight? No, you're actually on tomorrow night.
Am I really?
Yeah, you're on tomorrow night.
All right, I got to check my schedule.
All right, got to take a break. We'll come back. We'll have more of Brian Kilmeade. His new book, Andrew Jackson and the Miracle of New Orleans. Quick break. Right back. We have an awesome Hannity tonight, 9 Eastern, Hannity on the Fox News Channel. All right, as we continue, Brian Kilmeade, host of Fox and Friends, brand new book out, Andrew Jackson, The Miracle of New Orleans. No kidding around. I do think you've done 2 books now on history. You did Washington's Secret Six and Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates, and then you did Andrew Jackson and The Miracle of New Orleans. And I really like and enjoy all your books. I've read them, which is rare for a host to actually read a book. But I've had the time to go through them, and the stories are phenomenal, and I learned something in all these books. And obviously, you're a big fan of history.
Love it. And I just see a guy who's orphaned at 13, fighting in the war, and a prisoner of war as a teenager, loses his entire family, and is able to become a congressman, a senator, a lawyer, a judge, a 2-term president, and a major general. And it just goes to show you, he says, America gave me that opportunity. And when I'm reading his words, in 1805 and 1810, and then when he fights about in 1815, he's in love with the country, and he knows this is the only country he can do it. I just thought we need to hear a good story. Well, Andrew Jackson
I agree with you.
Perfect.
It was perfect.
This win wasn't supposed to happen. He beats the British in under an hour.
You know what's amazing? I mean, I started out as a dishwasher in life and a paper boy, and you started out as a soccer coach. I mean, and look how blessed we've been because we live in the greatest country God gave man.
Hey, listen, I only
know you're a soccer coach because Roger used to say it all the time.
Well, yeah, that was a bit of a put down, but I was a dishwasher, waiter, busboy.
You and me both. We have the same background. What do you mean it was not a put down on you? Why would you say that?
Well, they're trying to say that I'm a soccer coach. What I do is I played soccer through college, and then when my kids started playing, I thought I want to be the one in control of all these kids. And now that they're in their 20s, which is scary, they're checking back with you as young men, and it's just amazing to be able to have that type of impact. But it's totally divorced from this. They couldn't care less what we did for a living. Now they're starting to care a little more.
All right, I got a
connection.
Well, anyway, it's in bookstores everywhere. It's out today, and Andrew Jackson and the Miracle of New Orleans. It's a fascinating read and story. All right, so I'll see you on Fox and Friends on Thursday. We'll see you on my show tomorrow night. Brian Kilmeade, my friend and colleague over at the Fox News Channel. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Sean. I just got to say I'll be Tyson's Corner in Fredericksburg, Virginia this weekend.
Oh, that's a great place. I've been there. All right, you're going to have a great time.
All right, go get him, Sean. Thanks, man.
I appreciate it. 800-941-SEAN, our number. All right, 25 now till the top of the hour. All right, so many of you have been so patient all throughout the day here. We do get complaints. Lauren takes them when I don't get to people that have been gracious and nice and they hold, and then I'm always trying to manage the clock. But I will say this, you are really good at calling people back and we'll say, all right, we'll call you tomorrow and we'll put you on tomorrow, right?
There's so many great calls out there.
I know.
We just can't get to all of them. So I like to make sure we can get them in when we can.
You know, the difference between you and Rush Limbaugh's call screener, who's a good friend of ours, who Rush calls Bo Snerdley, James Golden is his real name. I don't know, am I allowed to reveal? It's been revealed a million times.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows. And James has his own talk show going on in there, and this is what you do. Hi, please don't curse at me like that. It's not nice. Please, pretty please.
Gotten a little more aggressive over the years.
You're getting a little tougher over the years?
It took a few years, but she doesn't sound like the way you're making her sound.
Is that not anymore? That's pretty funny. All right, let's get to our busy phones as we say hi to Nancy is in North Carolina. She doesn't like that I make fun of Brooklyn accents. What's going on there?
That's right.
How are you?
That's right, Sean. I'm good, thank you.
What's going on?
Thanks for calling back.
By the way, I can tell you have a thick New York accent and you're living in North Carolina. What?
Excuse me? I'm going to lay it on real thick, okay? I'm not going to try to hide my accent, which I do on occasion. You always mocking Linda. You're always making fun of her accent, which insults me.
I am not. Well, first, I am from New York.
You always do that to her.
First of all, I mean, because here's the honest truth. When I started in radio, And my first professional radio gig was in Huntsville, Alabama. The first time I got paid a whopping $19,000 a year. And I just started as an afternoon host. I did a 2 to 5. I think maybe I started at 2 to 4. Anyway, I ended up doing 2 to 5. Then I ended up, by the time I left, I was doing 6 to 9 in the morning and 2 to 5 in the afternoon. And yeah, I mean, that's a little too much Hannity if you ask me. But when I first got there, and I have tapes of it, I was Sean, New York, talk radio, how you doing, coffee. So now I still have it, especially when I'm tired, it comes out more. And I'm not affecting my voice. I did just try to slightly diminish it. And when I hear Linda, I hear it full on, first of all.
First of all.
How about, why don't you say.
Wait. When we went to Nancy, we were this weekend, we were in Cleveland, we were in Dallas. So we're at this event, and this person comes up to me, and she's like, "Are you Linda?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, my God, first of all." And I'm like, "We're in church, for God's sakes." It was hysterical. I was dying.
I was dying. It was hysterical. Oh, my God.
It was hysterical. And
my God.
The best part is like the preacher's kids were there, and they came up, and they were like, "Oh, we love Sean. I'm glad y'all are here. Y'all are just so wonderful." And I was like, "Oh, thanks, guys. We really appreciate it." And the guy goes, this little boy, he's like 4 years old, and he says,
like 4.
He goes,
how old is he?
4.
4?
And he says, "Man, you guys, you talk funny." And I said, "No, you talk funny." He goes, "No, I don't." It was adorable.
I happen to like accent. I'm not making fun of Linda. I'm just pointing out that it's...
Okay, when a person comes from England and they have a Cockney accent, do you make fun of them?
Absolutely. What do you think I do to Katie Hopkins all the time? Katie, the grubby one.
I don't know what that is.
A spot tea. Yeah, I do it all the time.
It's insulting because, listen, all my life.
All your life.
All my adult life.
All your adult
life.
life.
From New York.
Right.
I lived away from New York. I lived in Toronto. I lived down here. I lived overseas.
Nancy, I'm not mocking. There's a part of it that's charming.
It's annoying, and I think it's juvenile, personally. I really do.
I don't know, Nancy. I think
being called,
it's all love.
Being called Long Island and New Jersey, especially, like they don't have accents. They make fun of my accent. They mock. Oh, coffee.
I'm not. Listen.
Oh, coffee.
Coffee. Because it's funny. That's why.
My son does it to me. My son says to his friends. My son's 18. His friends come in the house. He goes to me, "Ma, say coffee."
Ma,
I'm
say
like,
coffee.
Looking at him. I want to.
And then you say, "Would you like a cup of coffee, please?"
Would you like a cup of coffee, please?
Now, see, there you go.
I used to be very self-conscious.
Hey, Nancy, you know what the best thing you can be in life is? Authentic.
Yes.
You be you, and you know what? It doesn't matter. People will love you or hate you for who you are, and your true friends will come to love and appreciate the nice person you are. But I got to run. I got to move on.
Sweet.
Thank you, Nancy. We love you, accent and all. I'm not making fun of you. I mean, I'm making fun of the accent. You don't even know you have one, or you really didn't.
I mean, listen, we can all not have an accent and do what I call the American accent, which is what you do. But every once in a while, when you're on the air, you'll say afterwards.
But you mean like when I'm really tired?
Or when you're not thinking about it, and then your accent comes out. But I mean, when we travel, I try not to sound as New York, because I know people get scared. I don't want to frighten everyone.
I didn't think about it that way. I'm glad you didn't tell the story that I was at the pulpit and I said ass.
God, that was so bad.
That was not. I don't. But like it's like
we're in church. We're in this diversity coalition with Pastor Dr. Daryl Scott. And it's this amazing group of people that come out on a Sunday night, and they got their kids there. And Sean's up there, and we're sweating in the church because it's 80 degrees in Cleveland, Ohio in October for no reason. Mm-hmm. And Sean's like, he's preaching. He's getting the amens and the hallelujahs and all this good stuff. And then he goes, "You know what I said? I said, get your ass in that chair." And the whole church goes, "Arr!" It just was silent.
And then I turned to Pastor Scott, and I said, "Oops." But I thought my Clinton imitation, I want to say to all hot girls in the pews that we're going to talk a little later.
I think any man who says ass and then does a Clinton impersonation on the pulpit is a brave man.
Oh, boy. Well, that's not my calling. That's obviously not my calling, although Pastor Scott thought so. All right, let's get to the phones. Ed is in Vegas at our affiliate AM 720 KDON Radio. What's going on, Ed? How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks, Sean. How are you?
I'm good. What's going on?
I just wanted to call and give some shouts out to your movie. We were lucky enough to be at the premiere on Friday. You had it at the Trinity Life Center. My family
Oh, I'm
went
so
there,
happy.
including my
Did you like it?
stepdaughter. Oh, we loved it. You know,
All right, let me ask a question, because there are a lot of people there. Did a lot of people cry?
Oh, gosh. You mentioned it right before you headed out. You said, oh, don't forget the tissue boxes here, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house, I'll tell you.
I'm so proud of the movie. I've got some good news, by the way. So this is an independent film. We're going to start maybe in 500 theaters now. We keep adding. We're up to nearly 400 now, and by Friday we may be up to like 500. And apparently there's just now the people... The theater owners are made aware of the movie because we did this all independent of any Hollywood studio. They're all now getting on board. It's pretty exciting, actually.
That is exciting. I'm glad to hear that because everyone needs to see this. I'll tell you real quickly. I grew up Catholic myself, Catholic school K through 12, and I've kind of struggled with my faith over the last so many years of my adult life. But gosh, watching this movie, it was like you were making it for me. I called my mother right away and said, "Oh my gosh, I think Hannity made this one for me." So there's so many of people out there just like myself that I know will relate and appreciate it, and it was just very inspiring.
Well, I'm so glad you liked it. The only reason I did it is because I loved the story. I loved it, and I decided, all right, I'm going to be the executive producer of this, and I hope people will go see it because I think it will move your mind, your heart, and your soul, which Hollywood never does because Hollywood is so formulaic. This is your typical Hollywood movie. Now, occasionally, like I like shoot 'em up movies, I like Jason Bourne movies, they're cool. But short of that, then you get, you get Spider-Man 500, Batman 600, Superman 900, and then you get the same formula. Jennifer Aniston falls in love with another Hollywood actor in the movie, and then they break up, and then they get back together, or they don't get back together. And the other formula is just sex and violence. That's it. And this is a different genre. And you know what? We did this whole thing independent of any studio, so that means we have total control. And I'm very happy how it came out, and I hope people will go see it. By the way, the list of theaters, did you update it? It's up on Hannity.com. You're updating it daily. Okay, good. Thank you, because we're now up to about 400 theaters. All right, Ryan is in Los Angeles on KEIB. What's going on, Ryan? How are you?
How you doing, Sean?
You know, those call letters were made just for Rush. We don't have a WSEAN or W Hannity network. Rush has his own call letters out in Los Angeles. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, Rush is hard to get through to also, just like you, Sean.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you made it. What's on your mind today?
So, speaking about the panicking that's going on in the DNC, you're speaking with a guy who gets to see this front line and center. I do bartending all over this great make-believe land, and let's just say the panic is real. Last week, you had Rashad Brown out here. He's a senator from Ohio. He's out here, to get some money. He wasn't so successful. Cory Booker was out here last year for the same fundraiser. He walked with over $2 million. Our buddy Rashad Brown was only able to walk with $114,000. That's a big difference.
Wow.
Yeah. And
now, how long you been tending? How old are you, by the way? Because I tended bar a long time.
I'm 35, Sean. I went back to tending bar once we started having kids. I'm not going to, unfortunately, in this economy we live in, my wife and I both have to work, being middle class. And, she has to work too, so I got to work at night. I'm not going to make my wife go work at night. So we have to split the cost, the time, the daycare, everything. So we have our second child due Christmas.
Oh, that's awesome. My birthday's December 30th, so, maybe
my son,
I would choose Jesus' birthday over mine, though. I think that's a better one.
It's a good one. My son's the 27th, and my daughter is due the 29th, so we'll see.
Well, that's exciting. Congratulations. But you're also describing why this tax reform and these middle-class tax cuts are so important. Because you've got kids, and by the way, kids aren't cheap, but
important.
By the time you pay for all the food and the clothes and the baby formula and the crib and the toys that they never touch anyway, I mean, it's so out of control. Then you got to, find a decent school. And raising kids is a lot of money and a lot of dedication. And the government taking so much of our money makes it harder for everybody.
Of course it does. And, living in California where they take all your money to give it away to, excuse my French, but they give it away to a lot of scumbags out here because there's a lot of people milking the cow out here. Let me tell you, I live in Culver City. We could go over to Venice Beach. I can show you. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's like the land of the lost. I mean, it's just, You got people walking around, nobody working, nobody, but they all want something from you. I mean, I can't walk down the street with my son without being asked for $5. $5. I'm like, when did it go up? How about $1? How about you didn't do anything? I'll give you $5. I mean, even the beggars' prices went up.
I mean, everybody's. That's funny. Anyway, let me get back to our phones. Ryan, thank you. We say hi next to Larry is in Chicago, Illinois. What's up, Larry? How are you?
Good. How are you, Sean? I'm actually born and raised most of my life in New Jersey. So I'm in Chicago right now, but born and raised in New Jersey.
Oh, that's awesome. What's going on?
I had something happen this week, and it kind of brought me back to, this NFL controversy with the flag. And, I started thinking I have a lot of other people I know now are getting more and more frustrating and turning off the NFL. I basically stopped watching it at the end of last year, not so much when Kaepernick was kneeling, but when a few other guys joined in. And the more I think about this, I'm just like, wow, the NFL is they really have no clue as to, who their customer base is and how much they're alienating them. But there was a good side to this whole thing. Basically what happened, because I have a lot more free time on Sundays now, I spent a lot more time with my wife when we're both off. And we were actually down at an amusement park outside of Cincinnati this weekend. And the tradition of this park and
was it Kings Park by any chance? Kings Park?
Kings Island.
Kings Island, yeah. We used to
Kings
do our
Island
Freedom concerts there. Beautiful place. My kids loved it.
Yeah. We were there for their Halloween fest, their haunt, and at the beginning of, and all the Cedar Fair parks that I've been to, at the beginning of the day, they play the national anthem before they let you in the gates. And there's about maybe 1,500 people lined up for all the different lines to get into the park. And the national anthem starts to play, and it was amazing because all at once, everybody just turned around. And I turned around, and there's this monster flag behind us, and that's why everyone turned around, took their hats off, put their hands over the heart. They played the anthem. Some people started to sing the anthem. And at the end, everybody gave it a big applause. And it really, to a person, 1,500, 2,000 people that were waiting to get in. And it was just amazing to me. And, when I was younger, my parents always said, be grateful being born in this country and being raised in the United
I'm glad
States.
about one thing. Nobody was kneeling. And you know what?
Nobody
This is what the NFL is not understanding. Hey, as I was pointing out earlier, you look at they've now lost millions of viewers, the NFL. They're losing millions in revenue. We have empty stadiums. And a survey shows baseball has now surpassed the NFL in popularity because of all these anthem protests. And I'm going to tell you, if they keep at it, they're just going to keep continuing to lose customers because they're pissing their customers off. And it's that simple. They're not doing what people want them to do. Hey, I got to roll, not because I don't want to talk to you, because I'm just out of time. All the best to you in Chicago. 800-941-SEAN is our number if you want to be a part of the program. Quick break. We'll continue. All right, tonight at 9, we have an awesome Hannity, all the new developments. And there's so much breaking today as it relates to the Russia uranium story, the Corker Trump fight, and Ivanka on more personal issues. You don't want to miss what she has to say about people that are mean to her father, and her family. That's tonight, 9 Eastern, Hannity on the Fox News Channel. We hope you'll always set your DVR and join us so that we can beat the competition, which doesn't like it when we win. Also, yes, Snowflake is gone. See you back here tomorrow.